Good morning and welcome. Thank you to everyone for being here on our very big day. My name's Celina, and I'm here today to talk to you about organizational culture and mission. The way this presentation is going to look is what I like to call my climb through practicum. Not because it was a struggle, but because it was fun. So we'll make a stop at base camp where my light bulb went off. Finally, moving on to my travel in New Zealand, which guided me into my journey here. We'll take a few trail stops into organizational culture and mission statements, and then finally summiting at the work I'm doing with Sierra Trading Post. So my light bulb went off in 2012. I was supporting a friend at a panel discussion about education, and I there met Katie Sherwin, who I think I might be butchering her last name, is the COO of Badger, a local company here to Keene, who makes healthy body products, so to speak. And Katie was talking not about what Badger does or how they do it, but why they do it. And at that point, I realized that this is something I'm really passionate about. Why do any of us do what we do? At that time, I was also enrolled in a much larger university, in a very standard MBA program. And I was talking to some friends about this conversation that Katie gave, and I decided that I needed a change, which led me here to Antioch and chasing Taryn around for almost a year and a half before I ended up here. So first year comes and goes at Antioch, and Robbie, my practicum advisor, says, well, what do you want to learn more about? And at that point, I didn't quite know, but I knew I was very passionate about the people sphere of sustainability. So at that time, I was also working three jobs, two part-time, which I loved, one full-time that I less than loved. And I needed a change, and I had the opportunity to go with a friend to New Zealand for a month. And the not-so-practical Celina applied for a leave of absence and bought a plane ticket without hearing yes or no, because I hated my job so much that I was going to quit to go to New Zealand if that's what it came to. Fortunately for me, it didn't. I got my leave of absence, but I did consider changing my flight back a few times. So I came back, and I was in New Zealand, and this is a picture of Mitri Peak. This is the most photographed mountain in New Zealand on the South Island, and I was sitting here when I finally realized, what was it that I hated so much about my job? What could possibly drive me to just leave? And I had a hunch that had to do with culture. So I come back, and I'm talking to Robbie. I said, I want to know more about culture. Little did I know that culture is a huge topic. It's written about everywhere. It's a loosely thrown around word. But I spent a whole semester just studying what culture meant and trying to define it. And finally, I had to pick one person and go by what they thought culture was in all their studies. And I picked Edgar Schein. And what Mr. Schein said is, organizational culture is a pattern of shared assumptions. It is how we as a group think, feel, perceive. It's both here and now phenomenon, and it's the foundation of social order. It's what teaches us how to act within certain instances and circumstances. And most importantly, it's not only all around us and in this room right now, but it's also within us. Each one of us in this room is bringing a different culture to this room. What Mr. Schein also says is that artifacts, exposed values, and basic underlying assumptions are the three layers to culture. And so artifacts are visual. You can see them, not necessarily easily interpreted. So for instance, it could be in an organization a hierarchy map. Great, you can see it, but you don't really know how that works. Exposed values are goals, perceptions that an organization uses to sort of rationalize why they do what they do. And then finally, basic underlying assumptions, which are the most important of organizational culture. They're completely unconscious. So they're the way that we act without knowing why we do what we do. And what Mr. Schein said is that in order to understand basic underlying assumptions, in a culture is you have to be in it and understand it. So when he was doing all his studying, he was putting himself inside these organizations he was studying so that he could understand those things before he could write about them. At the end of our first semester this year, we had to give an elevator speech about this topic, and I drew what you see here, and I tried to explain it to Chad and Jess. And Jess, bless you for doing this, she very bluntly said to me, "You are going to hate this." And I was like, yeah, I'm not quite sure this is what I'm all about. So I had to make a judgment call to ride out, organizational culture, or to really find out why it is I was doing my practicum project. And I went back to that talk I heard Katie give in 2012, and it was the why. Why are any of us doing the work that we're doing? So I jumped onto mission statements. Mission statements are known as a corporate reporting tool and a communication tool. They often involve your reason for being, objectives, goals, profit, stakeholders, and there's a slew more, but these are the most common here. And again, huge topic, right? A lot of people are studying this, but I decided to use Peter Drucker, who is known as the father of management. And what Peter said is, a mission statement should be 3 or 4 sentences long. It should say who you are, what you do, what you stand for, and for me, the most important, why you do what you do. So that leads me to the next question I have for you. Do you know what your organization's mission is? Show of hands. Anybody know what that really is? Oh, more than I expected. That's awesome. So, Gallup Report, they're an American-based research organization and business consulting firm. What they found is only 41% of people know what their organization stands for. Pretty shocking number, right? Only 41% of people know why they work where they work. Another statistic that I thought was very interesting is 1/3 of the workforce feels that their mission of their organization makes them feel important in the work that they're doing. Also, which leads to disengaged employees, which you heard Jess talk about earlier. And for every 9 engaged employees to 1 disengaged, you have, on average, 147% higher earnings than your competition. So think about what that number would say if it was reversed, right? No earnings, maybe? Yeah. Maybe going out of business. So I didn't want to lose all of the research I had done first semester. And, I couldn't exactly just make this presentation based on just mission, because I only had a small amount of time to research it. But what I wanted to do is find a connection. And however, there was nothing out there that said, yes, this is connected to this. But what I did find is that mission is the vehicle for any culture. The why is just so important to basically lay out why we act the way we act within an organization, what we're doing. So I saw it as a vehicle for culture. At this time, I also got a new job for Sierra Trading Post in Burlington, Vermont. And it was a new store, retail store. And what I found is I didn't think there was any culture there at all. And so I made a commitment to my boss to use this connection I found to empower our associates in the culture within Sierra Trading Post using its mission. This is our mission here. In short, it says that we believe to give our customers the best customer service. We will operate at the lowest cost possible to save our customers the most money, and that we like to treat people the way in which we like to be treated. So my commitment to my boss was to give him a list of recommendations on how our store in Burlington, Vermont can leverage the mission statement to influence the culture to make it stronger. The areas in which I've given him recommendations are mission statement communication, treating employees as humans, and hiring for culture. Then the work has already started. About 2 weeks ago, the VP of Operations was in our building taking measurements on efficiencies. And he came up to me and he's like, Celina, how are things going? And I said, great, Todd. He goes, well, don't tell me about work, tell me about your life. What are you up to? And I said, well, I'm just wrapping up my master's project. I'll be done in a few weeks, and I've got my presentation. Well, what are you studying? And I said, mission statements and organizational culture. And he said, do you know what our mission statement is? And I said, duh, of course I do. And he said, well, I don't. And as my jaw drops to the ground, I'm trying to reel it back up. And I say, well, Todd, let me show you. And I walked him over. This is our wall in our store. And I said, it's right here, Todd. And I said, see the second line, we operate at the lowest cost. Your job, this is why you're doing what you're doing. This is why you're in our store measuring how we can be better. And his eyes got really wide. And so it was, the conversation unfortunately didn't get to end there. We got interrupted, but it was a step in the right direction. Currently, I'm also working with my bosses to change our interview guide. We're writing some SOPs that are nowhere to be found in our organization and doing a couple of fundamental things. And it's my hope that after I roll out the final list of recommendations, I'll pass it on to some of the other store managers as well. Thank you so much.